I was reborn, returning to the wedding night with Luna. She had just finished her shower, wrapped in a towel, about to say to me the sentence that disgusted me for a lifetime. In my previous life, it was at this moment that she, looking pitiful and fragile, told me she wasn't ready and wanted to sleep in a separate room. I believed her, sat foolishly in the bridal chamber until dawn, and she flew overseas overnight to go see her white moonlight. I drove to the airport like a madman. On the way, my secretary Lisa called, her voice trembling. Mr. Ethan, Ms. Luna didn't go to see her first love. It was a working student, a male student named Jake. The next second, the blinding headlights swallowed me. Now, watching her about to speak, I smiled. Luna, I interrupted her and threw a document onto the dressing table. Let's get a divorce. The fragility in her face froze instantly. I pointed toward the door. Go find Jake. Don't perform for me. Luna's face went pale in an instant. Her fingers clutching the towel tightened sharply, knuckles whitening, disbelief written all over her eyes. Ethan, are you crazy? Tonight is our wedding night. Her voice rose, carrying a hint of sharp tremor. I tugged at the corner of my mouth and let out a cold laugh. Crazy? Yes, in my previous life, I was indeed crazy. For her, I rejected all ambiguity and placed my sincere heart before her. To make her family respect me, I fought desperately to build a company, took Johnson Group public, and gave her the life of a wealthy wife everyone envied. But what did I get? A lone, empty bridal chamber on our wedding night, her betrayal in turning away to seek another man, the humiliation of her using my money to support a pretty boy. In the end, I died tragically in a car accident on a rainy night. I'm not crazy. I'm perfectly lucid. I enunciated each word, my voice low but like an ice pick. Luna, I gave you face. Don't refuse it and act shameless. What did you say? Her eyes instantly reddened, and large tears, like beads cut from a string, rolled down. What did I do wrong? You're going to treat me like this? Just because I didn't want it to be so soon. She began to choke up, looking as if she had suffered a grievous wrong. Her acting. Hollywood still owes her a little golden statue. In my past life, I was completely fooled by that act. Put that act away. I stepped in front of her and looked down at her. You don't want to do it so soon. Who are you trying to stay pure for? For that Jake who worked at the coffee shop. Boom. Luna felt as if her mind had been blown apart. She staggered back a step, collided with the dressing table, and looked at me with a face full of terror, as if she were staring at a demon. How do you know? I know far more than you can imagine. I picked up that divorce agreement and a pen and shoved them into her cold hand. Sign it. The house, the car, the savings, don't even think about taking any of it. What I gave you, I'm taking back now. No. Impossible, she screamed, hurling the agreement to the floor. Ethan, you can't do this to me. I love you. Love me? What a huge joke. I couldn't be bothered to argue with her further. I pulled out my phone and opened a video on an overseas social app. In a video, Luna and Jake are kissing in the dim corner of a cafe, and Jake's hand has improperly slipped up under her hem. The filming date was the day before our wedding. Watching the video, Luna felt all her strength drained away and collapsed to the floor in a heap. Sign, or I'll send this video to your parents. Post it to your family's overseas social group and send it to all your girlfriends. I crouched down, picked up the divorce agreement, and tapped her face. Pick one. Luna was trembling all over, not from the cold, but from fear. She bit her lip hard, tears in her eyes mingling with humiliation and malice. Ethan, you investigated me? Otherwise, should I sit back and have you cheat on me and still be grateful to you? I spread the divorce agreement out in front of her again, my voice devoid of any warmth. You have 3 minutes. If you don't sign, you bear the consequences yourself. In my past life, I trusted her far too much. I believed her when she said she was not ready yet. Believed her when she said, we need time to adjust. Believed that her trip abroad was to mourn a lost first love. It wasn't until that call from Lisa that I realized how absurdly wrong I had been. She had no angelic first love at all. It was just an excuse she invented to secretly meet her lover. That so-called student, Jake, only had eyes for her money, and she reveled in the vanity of being pursued by a young body. One wanted money, the other wanted sex. They treated me like an ATM and a fool. How laughable. Luna looked at me. Her expression shifted repeatedly, from shock to fear, then to a faint trace of calculation. Ethan, I'm sorry, I really am. She suddenly lunged forward, tried to grab my leg and play the sympathy card. I was momentarily confused. Jake kept pestering me. I never really liked him. The one I love is you. Please forgive me this once, okay? We've only just gotten married. I kicked her away, not letting her touch me even a fraction. Don't touch me with your dirty hands. I looked at her in disgust. You love me? What you love is my money, the vanity that the title Mrs. Johnson can bring you. Luna, stop your ridiculous performance. It won't work on me anymore. Her cry faltered, a flash of embarrassment and anger crossing her face. Ethan, do you have to be so cruel? We're husband and wife. Can't you at least leave me some face? Face? I sounded like I'd heard a joke. When you were cheating on me behind my back, did you ever think about face between spouses? When you used my money to support Jake, did you ever think about face between spouses? I pressed her step by step. With every word I said, her face grew paler. You think I don't know? The apartment you rented for him, $20,000 a month. The watches you bought him, hundreds of thousands of dollars. You even tried to embezzle money from Johnson Group to open a coffee shop for him. All of this was what Lisa had found out and told me before I was reborn. Each one felt like a knife, stabbing hard into my heart. Luna was utterly stunned. She hadn't expected that I would know so clearly. All her disguises, in the face of this ironclad evidence, became a laughingstock. She opened her mouth but couldn't utter a single word. Sign. I handed the pen over again. Or else, I won't stop at posting the video. I'll ruin you and Jake's reputations. Luna's last psychological defense completely collapsed. Her hand trembling, she picked up the pen and signed her name at the end of the divorce agreement. After writing the last character, she seemed to have all her strength drained and collapsed limply to the floor. I put away the agreement, didn't even glance at her again, and turned to leave. I stopped at the door and didn't look back. Get out of my house by tomorrow. I'll have the servants pack all your things and throw them at the door. After speaking, I closed the door, completely shutting out her cries and despair behind me. On our wedding night, I personally ended this absurd marriage. Leaving the bedroom, I directly dialed my ex-father-in-law George's number. In my previous life, he gave me no small amount of grief. He took advantage of being Luna's father to boss me around. He insisted on attending Johnson Group meetings to meddle, as if the company belonged to him. After Luna's affair was exposed, instead of thinking his daughter was at fault, he called to scold me, saying I lacked tolerance, had no manliness, and had embarrassed him. This time around, I certainly won't indulge him anymore. The call connected quickly, and George's strong, confident voice came through. Hey, Ethan, calling right after the wedding. Have you come to your senses? Are you planning to arrange for Luna's brother to become a vice president at the Johnson Group? I tugged at the corner of my mouth. Look, this is my dear father-in-law. On the wedding night, without asking how his daughter and son-in-law are doing, the first thing out of his mouth is to ask for a position for his uneducated son. Mr. George, I deliberately changed how I addressed him. I'm calling to inform you of something. What is it? The deputy general manager position can't be delayed any longer. I divorced Luna. There was instantaneous silence on the other end of the line. After a full 10 seconds, George's roar finally exploded through the receiver. What the hell did you say? Divorce? Ethan, you bastard. How dare you mess with my daughter? Mr. George, watch your language. My voice went cold. Your daughter cheated on me during our marriage and cuckolded me. She has already signed the divorce papers. Tomorrow, you can come pick her up. Nonsense. My daughter is gentle and virtuous. There's no way she would cheat. It must be you, you ungrateful ingrate. Do you have another woman on the side and want to dump our Luna? George began hurling insults indiscriminately. I couldn't be bothered to argue with him, so I opened the overseas social app and sent that video. Watch it yourself. Also, tell your son not to try getting into Johnson Group. And about Carter Enterprises' bid for the South City New District project, my advice is don't pin too many hopes on it. When I finished speaking, I hung up before he could react and blocked him. Dealing with people like that, even one more word is a waste of breath. After doing all this, I finally felt the lifelong pent-up resentment in my chest ease somewhat. I walked to the living room's floor-to-ceiling window and looked out at the night view of Jing City. Everything had restarted. In this life, I will no longer compromise myself for anyone. Those who owe me will pay me back 1,000-fold, 100-fold. Early the next morning, I returned to Johnson Group. Lisa saw me, her gaze evasive, words on the tip of her tongue. "Good morning, Mr. Ethan." "Morning." I nodded and headed straight for the office. In my previous life, Lisa was my secretary, loyal and devoted. That final phone call was also the one she had mustered the courage to make to me. This time around, I naturally wouldn't treat her unfairly. "Lisa, bring me the project proposal for that plot in the Chengxi New District," I instructed. Lisa paused. "Mr. Ethan, haven't we already decided to abandon that project and concentrate all our efforts on bidding for the Southern City New District project? Mr. George over there." The Mr. George she referred to as George. It was George who had urged me to make sure we won the Southern City New District project. In my previous life, I listened to him and poured most of Johnson Group's funds and manpower into bidding for that project, only to fall into a huge contract trap, have the cash flow break, and see the company go bankrupt overnight. And the real prize was that plot in the Western New District of the city that everyone had written off. Later, that plot was snapped up at a low price by my mortal enemy Derek. Within 6 months, when the government planning documents were issued, they announced a new central business district there, and the land value multiplied 50-fold. With that land, Derek rocketed to become the richest man in Jing City. "Stop the Southern New District project," I said, leaving no room for argument. "From now on, all company resources will be redirected to bidding for the Western New District land. Also, prepare a file for me. I want Mr. Derek's company's complete financial data and any project vulnerabilities." Lisa was completely stunned. "Mr. Ethan, this is too risky. That plot in the Western New District. Do as I say." I interrupted her. "If anything goes wrong, I'll take responsibility." Seeing the determination in my eyes, Lisa, though full of doubts, still nodded. "All right, Mr. Ethan." After she left, I leaned back in a boss chair and closed my eyes. Revenge is not just against the Luna family. Everyone who trampled on me or betrayed me in my past life. I will not spare a single one. Derek is the first. I will make him taste what it's like to fall from the clouds into the mud. In the afternoon, Lisa brought the materials in, very efficient. I carefully flipped through Derek's company files, comparing them one by one with the information in my memory. That's right, his biggest funding gap now is on the South City New District project. He's also keeping an eye on that project, hoping to turn things around with it. Very good. I picked up the phone and dialed a number. "Hello, is this reporter Emma? I got a big scoop about Mr. Derek's company committing financial fraud and illegal fundraising. Are you interested?" An hour later, reports began to spread across overseas news platforms. Shocking scandal. Leading company Walker Group accused of major financial fraud. Chairman Derek's capital game. Exposing the illegal fundraising scheme behind the Southern New District project. Derek's company's stock price plummeted in response. And I quietly had the finance department start buying up his shares at the low prices. In this game, I planned to beat him until he had not even his underwear left. Luna called in the afternoon from an unfamiliar number. The moment it connected, she was accusing me with a tearful voice. "Ethan, why did you freeze my credit card? What do you mean by this?" "We're divorced, Miss Luna." I leaned back in my chair, slowly twirling my pen. "I have no obligation to support you anymore. But I have no money. I have nothing left," she screamed in breakdown on the other end of the line. "That's your business. Ethan, you bastard. You can't treat me like this." I hung up the phone immediately. Not long after, The company receptionist called my extension and said a Miss Carter was causing a scene in the lobby, insisting on seeing me. I rub my brow. Have security escort her out. If she resists, call the police and charge her with provoking trouble. Yes, Mr. Ethan. I opened the office blinds and looked down from upstairs. Soon, I saw Luna being dragged out by two tall security guards, their arms under hers, pulled from the resplendent Johnson Group lobby. Her hair was disheveled, her makeup streaked from crying, and she kept cursing under her breath, drawing sidelong glances from passers-by. That bedraggled appearance was a far cry from the eternally aloof, exquisitely elegant Mrs. Johnson I remembered. In my previous life, she acted the same way. When she learned my company had gone bankrupt, she rushed to me not to comfort me, but to curse me for being useless, shaming me, then grabbed the last of my savings and vanished without a trace. What goes around comes around. Now, it was her turn to taste that feeling. I coldly withdrew my gaze and pulled down the blinds. People like that aren't worth me wasting another ounce of emotion on. After dealing with Luna, my mood improved considerably, and I began to focus on handling Derek's affairs. Over the next few days, under the double blow of public opinion and evidence, Derek was in a frenzy and the stock price kept hitting the limit down. To stabilize the situation, he had no choice but to frantically sell off other assets to fill the hole in the Changnan New District project. And this played right into my hands. I told him to sell. Once he'd sold everything he could and was left with only that wasteland in Chengxi New District that he didn't value at all, that would be when I closed the net. That evening, I was about to leave work when an unexpected person came looking for me. It was Luna's lover, Jake. He was stopped by the receptionist outside, arrogantly insisting on seeing me. I had Lisa let him in. The moment he stepped into the office, he began appraising the surroundings without any courtesy, his eyes full of greed and envy. "You must be Ethan," he said, hands in his pockets, adopting a cocky, slovenly air. I said nothing, just watched him quietly. "I warn you, stay away from Luna." He walked up to my desk and slammed his palm down on it. "Luna is my woman. She loves me. A rustic fool like you who only knows how to throw money around doesn't deserve her." His words were full of provocation, as if he were there to assert his claim. I suddenly laughed. "What a naive fool. Are you done?" I asked. "What are you laughing at?" He was angered by my reaction. "I laughed at you. Death is at your door, and you still don't know it." I took out my phone and pressed the record button. Then I leaned forward and, in a voice only the two of us could hear, I said softly, "Do you think Luna loves you? She'll have nothing before long. Without money, will you still love her?" Jake's expression changed in an instant. "What do you mean?" The arrogant blaze on Jake's face was instantly half extinguished. "I mean it literally. I'll watch him at my leisure. I've already stripped Luna clean and sent her out the door. The properties, luxury cars, and designer goods in her name were all bought by me. Now, I'm taking them all back." I paused, savoring the brilliant changes in his expression. "In other words, she now has not a penny to her name." Jake's mouth opened and closed, like a fish out of water. The greed and jealousy in his eyes were quickly replaced by panic and calculation. "Impossible. Luna, she... Don't believe me?" I smiled and pushed a copy of the asset certificate across to him. "You can look, see whose name all these things are under now." Jake took the document with trembling hands. The more he read, the paler his face became. "She told me. She said if you two divorced, she'd be entitled to half the family's assets. She lied to you." I leaned back in the chair, my voice contemptuous. Or maybe she was just too naive, cheating during marriage and expecting to claim half the assets. "Do you take the law for decoration?" I looked at him as if he were a buffoon. "The apartment she rented for you expires next month. The things she bought you, I could sue to take them back at any time. You'd better think carefully about what you stand to gain by sticking with a pauper." After speaking, I turned off the phone recording and saved the conversation. Jake was completely flustered. He came to see me intending to show off and humiliate me, and to see if he could squeeze some money out of me while he was at it. But he never expected that Luna's mountain of gold would collapse like this. He looked at me, his eyes flickering, tiny beads of sweat forming on his forehead. Mr. Ethan, this has nothing to do with me. It was Luna who seduced me. She said she was unhappy, said you treated her badly. I just got soft for a moment, that's all. He began frantically distancing himself, shifting all the responsibility onto Luna. That expression was hideously ugly. Oh, really? I feigned surprise. Yes. Mr. Ethan, I wanted to break it off with her long ago. She's the one who kept clinging to me. I really admire you. You're accomplished at a young age, handsome and dashing. Luna isn't worthy of you. I nodded, as if accepting his explanation. Is that so? Would you do me a favor then? Jake's eyes lit up, thinking he'd found a new ally. He hurriedly bowed and agreed. Tell me, if it's within my power, I'll do it no matter what. It's simple. I sent him that piece of recording. Take this and go find Luna. Tell her you want to break up with her for good. If she clings to you, play this for her. I looked at his greedy yet cowardly face and added one more line. Once it's done, that watch she gave you before, consider it the breakup fee I'm giving you. Jake's eyes lit up in an instant. Thank you, Mr. Ethan. Thank you, Mr. Ethan. I promised to complete the task. He held his phone, bobbed and bowed, and left my office. Watching his back, the sneer at the corner of my mouth deepened. Luna, your so-called true love is nothing more than this. Betrayed by the person I trusted most. I hope you enjoy that feeling. After resolving the little episode with Jake, my life became completely peaceful. With Luna and her family's entanglements gone, I threw all my energy into my career. Under my precise maneuvering, Derrick Corporation's stock price had plunged to rock bottom. I had the finance department acquire more than 30% of the outstanding shares at a very low price, making us the second largest shareholder after Derrick. At the same time, the bidding for the land in the Western New District had also entered its final stage. Because everyone's attention had been drawn to the Southern New District project beforehand, the competition for this wasteland in the Western New District was not intense. I barely exerted any effort and still secured the final bidding qualification. And all of this pointed to the land auction 3 days later. That day would be the day I completely destroyed Derrick and laid the first cornerstone for my future empire. The day before the auction, a partner suddenly asked to revise contract details and arranged to meet me that evening at an upscale private club. I finished handling company matters and drove there. The moment I pushed open the private room door, I froze. In the private room, there wasn't just our partner, Mr. Michael Harris. A woman sat beside him. The woman wore a sharp white suit, her long hair softly curled, makeup immaculate. She saw me, stood up, reached out her hand, her face carrying a polite yet distant smile. Mr. Ethan, hello, I'm Sophia. Sophia. The name made my heart suddenly contract. In my previous life, after I went bankrupt, Derrick not only took away my company, but also tried to finish me off completely. When I was at my most miserable, it was Shingtu Capital, founded by Sophia, that reached out to help me. She appreciated my abilities and gave me an investment, giving me a chance to make a comeback. It's a pity I hadn't yet had the chance to repay her for seeing my potential before I died on the way to the airport. Unexpectedly, in this life we met so early. Hello, Miss Sophia. I quickly composed myself and took her hand. Her hand was very soft, with a hint of coolness. They separated at a touch. I've long heard Mr. Michael say, Mr. Ethan is accomplished at young age. Seeing him today, he truly lives up to his reputation, Sophia said, her gaze on me, tinged with curiosity. Miss Sophia flatters me, I replied calmly. The subsequent negotiations went very smoothly. Sophia was extremely professional, with clear logic and accurate market judgment. We quickly reached an agreement on the contract details. Seeing this, Mr. Michael happily suggested having a drink. At the table, Sophia seemed quite interested in me and casually asked about my personal circumstances. I heard Mr. Ethan recently got divorced. I paused with my glass in hand, then nodded. Yes. May I be so bold to ask, could you say what the reason was? She looked at me, her eyes without gossip, only pure curiosity. This question is very private, but for some reason, facing her, I did not feel averse. I was silent for a moment, then said lightly, "She betrayed me." A flicker of understanding crossed Sophia's eyes, and a faint, barely noticeable appreciation. She really has no taste. She raised her wine glass and offered a distant toast to me. To you, back to being single. I looked at the smile in her eyes and raised my glass too. Two wine glasses lightly clinked in the air, producing a clear, crisp sound. In that moment, my long-frozen heart seemed to show a hint of loosening. I saw Derek on the day of the auction. He looked much more haggard than a few days earlier. Heavy dark circles under his eyes, hair in disarray, clearly tormented by the company's troubles. He saw me, and a flicker of puzzlement crossed his eyes, which immediately turned into deep-seated hatred. "Ethan, this is your doing." He rushed over, trying to grab my collar, but was stopped by the bodyguard behind me. "Mr. Derek, you can eat a messy meal, but you can't speak carelessly." I straightened my tie and smiled at him. "What does your company's financial fraud have to do with me?" "You." Derek trembled with fury. "Don't get smug. Once I win the South City New District project, you'll be the first one I take down." "Is that so?" The smile on my face deepened. "Then I wish you luck." With that, I ignored him and walked straight into the auction hall. The auction began, starting with some small plots of land. The atmosphere was neither hot nor cold. Soon, it was time for the main event. The plot in the New South District. Starting bid, $5 billion US. Derek, as if clutching at a final straw, immediately raised his paddle. $51 billion US. Someone immediately followed. $5.2 billion US. The price kept climbing. Derek's eyes went bloodshot, and he matched every bid instantly, as if determined to win at all costs. I sat in my seat, watching coldly. I knew he was using all the company's liquid funds, even misappropriating a lot of project money to gamble. In the end, the price was raised to $8 billion, a figure that far exceeded the land's intrinsic value. Only Derek and a developer from out of town remained in competition. $81 billion. Derek roared the bid, veins bulging on his forehead. The out-of-town developer smiled and put down his bid card. "Congratulations, Mr. Derek." Bang! The auctioneer brought down the gavel. $81 billion sold. Derek seemed to have exhausted all his strength. He slumped into his chair, but his face showed the ecstatic joy of someone who had survived a catastrophe. He turned back and gave me a provocative glance. I raised my glass to him, smiling without a word. "Fool, do you think you've won? You've only stepped into the grave I dug for you." Next up was the plot in the Western New District. Starting bid, $500 million. Because it was in a remote location, no one showed interest. Only a few people sporadically raised their paddles. I waited until the price was called at $600 million before calmly raising my paddle. $1 billion US. I immediately nearly doubled the price. The whole room erupted. Everyone stared at me like I was an idiot. Derek even burst out laughing. "Ethan, are you fucking crazy? You spent $1 billion on a piece of wasteland? I think your company isn't far from bankruptcy." I ignored him. This price successfully drove away all the other competitors. Bang! The auctioneer brought down the gavel. $1 billion sold. The plot in the Western New District was successfully secured. The auction ended, and just as I stepped out the door, my phone rang. I answered, and a gloating voice came through. "Hello, Ethan? It's your ex-wife, Luna." Her voice was full of relish. "I heard you spent $1 billion on a plot of wasteland? That's hilarious. Serves you right. This is the karma for abandoning me." I hadn't had time to speak when the huge electronic screen at the auction house entrance suddenly began broadcasting an emergency news bulletin. Latest news from Jing City. The municipal government has just released its new urban development plan, announcing a new central business district in the West New Zone and the construction of a subway line. Luna's laughter stopped abruptly. On the other end of the line, there was a death-like silence. "Did you hear that?" I asked the phone indifferently. On the other end, there was only Luna's heavy breathing. She was clearly stunned by this earth-shattering reversal. The land in the Western New District is now worth at least $50 billion, and the plot Derek bought in the Southern New District for $8.1 billion. Because of contract fraud, that project has been halted by the government and is under investigation. Every time I spoke, I could picture Luna's face paling a little more. Luna, the retribution you kept talking about doesn't seem to have come. I chuckled softly. But you, without my money, swindled out of your savings by Jake. You must be having a hard time now, right? You, Ethan, you devil. She finally came to her senses from shock and let out a breathless, furious scream. I'm not doing well. Are you proud of that? Yes, I admitted calmly. I'm very proud. Seeing each of you who betrayed me living miserably makes me so happy I can eat 2 extra bowls of rice at night. You'll get what's coming to you. Keep those words for yourself. I hung up and added that number to my blacklist. Behind me, there was a loud crash. I turned and saw Derek collapse to the ground, foaming at the mouth, unconscious. Medical staff rushed forward. The scene was in utter chaos. I knew he was finished. Not only would the company go bankrupt, but the charges of embezzlement and illegal fundraising were enough to keep him in prison for the rest of his life. And I, standing on the corpses of his deeds, climbed to a new peak. As soon as the news about the land in the West City New District broke, Johnson Group's stock price immediately surged, and countless investment institutions waved cash to buy in. My name, Ethan, resonated throughout the entire Jing City business circle overnight. It was at that moment that Sophia's call came. Mr. Ethan, congratulations. Her voice carried a smile. A single battle to seal your godhood. Impressive tactics. Miss Sophia's news is still so well informed. I'm just more attentive to people who are capable. She shifted the topic. Are you free tonight? I'd like to invite you to dinner to celebrate. Of course. I gladly agreed. I'll choose the place. Consider it a return for your last hospitality. All right, it's a deal. I hung up the phone, and the smile at the corner of my mouth deepened without my noticing. Dealing with smart people is simply pleasant, especially when that smart person is also a beauty. I reserve a table at a French restaurant with a great view of the river and excellent privacy. When Sophia arrived, I was looking out at the river view. She was wearing a black long dress today, which made her skin appear even fairer. A simple strand of pearls hung around her neck, elegant and sexy. What are you looking at? She sat down opposite me. At my new empire. I pointed to the brightly lit new city west across the river. Sophia followed the direction of my finger and smiled. Aiming high, aren't you? Men, after all, should have a bit of ambition. The dishes arrived quickly, and we ate while chatting. From business models to future planning, we hit it off immediately. I realized that Sophia was not only an outstanding investor, but her insight and vision even surpassed many business magnates. Talking with her was a pleasure. To be honest, I'm very curious. Sophia swirled the red wine in her glass, her gaze dreamy as she looked at me. How did you know about the West City New District plan in advance? As far as I know, this news was only released this afternoon. This is the question everyone wants to ask, but I can't possibly tell her that I'm a reborn. I smiled, half true and half false, and said a hunch. Sophia clearly didn't believe me, but she didn't press the matter. She only raised an eyebrow. It seems Mr. Ethan has quite a few secrets. She set down her wine glass, leaned forward slightly, and her bright eyes stared straight at me. However, I'm very interested in your secrets. Her voice was low, tinged with a faint, teasing insinuation, and the warm breath seemed to brush across my face. The atmosphere instantly turned charged with ambiguity. My heart began racing uncontrollably. It had been a long time since any woman had made me feel like this. Miss Sophia, I said, looking at her as my Adam's apple bobbed, you're making it easy for people to get the wrong idea. Mistaken about what? She asked, feigning ignorance, a sly curve appearing at the corner of her mouth. Mistaken that I want to chase after you? She just laid it out so directly. I was stunned. Sophia, however, smiled. She reached out, and let her fingertips lightly trace the back of my hand. Ethan, I am not your ex-wife. I never believe in tears. I only believe in strength. You are strong, the kind I admire. Her movements were bold and straightforward. So, I'm chasing you. Do you accept? The river breeze outside the window blew by, carrying a hint of coolness. But I felt as if a flame, ignited where her touch grazed the back of my hand, burned all the way to my heart. I looked into her open, passionate eyes, and all the shadows of past and present lives seemed to be dispelled in that moment. I turned my hand and took hers. My honor. After confirming our relationship with Sophia, our feelings quickly intensified. She is a very unique woman. At work, she is decisive and ruthless, a swift and formidable investment queen. But in front of me, she also shows a more feminine, tender side. She remembers my tastes. When my meeting runs late, she'll bring supper to the office and wait for me. When I'm exhausted, she says nothing. She simply gives me a quiet hug. More importantly, she understands me. She understands the scars deep in my heart, and she understands my determination for revenge. She never tells me to be magnanimous. She only hands me a sharper knife. Do whatever you want to do. She leans against me, playing with my fingers. If the sky falls, I'll bear it with you. With a wife like this, what more could a husband ask for? With Sophia's help and support, my business empire expanded even faster. We joined forces to found a new investment firm, using my foresight about the future and her precise capital management to stir up one market storm after another. Wealth and status poured in toward me like a rolling snowball. I became the most coveted rising tycoon in Jing City. Countless people wanted to curry favor with me, and countless media outlets wanted to interview me. And just when I was enjoying endless glory, I received an unexpected phone call. It was my former father-in-law, George. His voice no longer had the robust energy it once did. Instead, it was full of humility and flattery. Mr. Ethan, I'm George. Do you still remember me? Something you need? My voice was cold. Mr. Ethan, look, after all, we're family of sorts. My Carter company has run into some trouble recently. Cash flow's stuck. Could you help us out? I smiled. When they called me an ungrateful wretch back then, why didn't they think we were relatives? Mr. George, I remember your company was planning to bid on the South City New District project, right? What happened didn't succeed. I asked on purpose. George on the other end of the line gasped. That was snatched by Derek. Now Derek's in, the project is dead, and the money I invested up front has gone down the drain. His voice carried a sobbing tone. Mr. Ethan, please be magnanimous. For Luna's sake, give me a hand. I'll work myself to the bone for you. For Luna's sake? I felt as if I had heard the biggest joke in the world. Mr. George, have you forgotten that your daughter cheated on me? We're already divorced. And besides, when you called me and cursed at me to get lost back then, you didn't have this attitude. I paused and spoke word by word. You used to ignore me when I showed you affection. Now I make you unattainable. Want me to help? Fine. George's eyes lit up. You say the word. Go kneel downstairs at Johnson Group and stay on your knees until I'm satisfied. Maybe I'll consider it. After I hung up, I ended the call, wanting to help, dreaming. I was determined to make him taste what utter desperation feels like when there's nowhere to turn. I thought George had some pride and wouldn't actually come. Unexpectedly, early the next morning, he really was kneeling beneath the Johnson Group building. He was wearing a cheap suit, his hair streaked with white, and he looked at least 10 years older. He was kneeling at the busy gate, holding a sign that read, "Please forgive me, Mr. Ethan." The scene immediately drew countless onlookers who began taking photos. Soon the topic #former father-in-law kneels begging son-in-law for forgiveness shot up to the local trending searches. I sat in my office, watching the farce downstairs through the surveillance, my expression not changing in the slightest. Lisa walked in, her face a little conflicted. Mr. Ethan, downstairs, should we have security? No, I cut her off. Let him kneel. Doesn't he like putting on a show? Let him perform to his heart's content. I want everyone to see how that once arrogant George looks now, with such a humiliating expression. I want Luna to see how the proud family she boasts about is being trampled under my feet. George knelt from morning until afternoon. Meanwhile, Luna arrived. She saw her father kneeling on the ground, being pointed at by everyone, and she rushed over in a panic, trying to pull him up. "Dad, get up. Why are you kneeling to him? Get out of my sight." George shoved her away, pointed at her nose, and cursed. "If it weren't for you, you think I'd be humiliated here today? It's all your fault, you bitch." Father and daughter, right there in front of everyone, tore into each other with blows and curses. The scene was even more dramatic than an 8 p.m. family soap opera. I turned off the monitor, feeling somewhat bored. Is this the family I once desperately tried to fit into? Ridiculous. In the evening, I drove the new limited edition sports car, carrying Sophia out of the company's underground garage. As the car passed the gate, I deliberately slowed down. Luna was holding the nearly fainting George and spotted us at a glance. She saw me in the driver's seat, then saw Sophia in the passenger seat, radiant and poised, and her eyes instantly reddened. Jealousy, resentment, unwillingness. A mix of emotions crossed her face, twisting what had been a fairly pretty face into something distorted and ugly. Sophia seemed to notice her gaze. She turned her head toward Luna and gave her a triumphant smile. Then, in front of Luna, she turned sideways and planted a kiss on my cheek. The gesture was brazen and full of provocation. I could clearly see Luna's body wobble, almost unable to stand. I rolled down the car window. The cold air inside met the heat wave outside. I looked at the disheveled Luna as if I were staring at a stranger. "Regret it?" I asked softly. Her tears broke loose in an instant. I didn't wait for her answer. I floored the accelerator, the sports car roaring as it sped away, leaving a trail of dust, leaving that miserable father and daughter far behind. After that, George's Carter Company completely collapsed. He was saddled with enormous debts. His house and car were seized by the court, and overnight he went from a pampered CEO to a homeless wanderer on the streets. As for Luna, without a source of income and lazy besides, she could only live with her father, scraping by from one meal to the next. From some rumors I heard, she went to work at some disreputable clubs for money. The once proud and aloof eldest miss of the Carter family, in the end, still let go of her ridiculous dignity for the sake of survival. I heard these rumors and could only smile them off. Their fate had long since been sealed. As for me, I was busy planning our wedding with Sophia. Sophia said she didn't want a grand, business-like arranged marriage. She only wanted to go with me to a quiet tropical island and exchange rings in front of close friends. I agreed. We chose an incredibly beautiful tropical island and booked the entire resort. The night before the wedding, we lay on the beach and watched the stars fill the sky. "What are you thinking about?" Sophia leaned against my shoulder. "I wonder where I would be now if I hadn't been reborn. I'd be in heaven, watching over you." Sophia took my hand, her tone resolute. And then, she'd do whatever it took to come to my side. I smiled. "Why are you so confident?" "Because we're the same kind of person." She turned her head and kissed my lips under the starlight. We were destined to meet. Yeah. Perhaps all the suffering in my past life was only so I could meet her in this life. On the wedding day, the weather was clear and the sea breeze gentle. I wore a white suit, standing beneath an arch woven with flowers, watching Sophia in a pure white wedding dress, holding a bouquet, walking toward me step by step. Behind her was the blue sea and sky. She was looking at me. In that moment, all the resentment and grievances from my past life vanished like smoke. My world gained a new light. Married life was sweet and fulfilling. Sophia was a woman of great taste. She would send bold, flirtatious messages while I was working, making my mind wander. At home, she would also change into all the outfits I liked, fulfilling every one of my fantasies. We were like two perfectly fitting puzzle pieces. In both soul and body, we matched to the utmost. She healed me, and she made me understand that true love is between equals, a mutual accomplishment, not one-sided giving and sacrifice. A year later, our son was born. I named him Ethan Jr. Johnson. Always remembered, year after year in peace. I hope he spends his life safe and joyful, never having to go through the darkness and betrayal I endured. Just when I thought those people and events from the past would be completely erased from my life, I saw Luna again. It was in the underground parking garage of an upscale mall. That day I was shopping with Sophia. When we went to retrieve the car, a woman wearing a cleaning uniform and a mask accidentally knocked over a bucket, and filthy water splashed up my pant leg. Sorry. She was so frightened she hastily apologized, her voice hoarse yet familiar. I frowned and got a clear look at her face. Though she had become gaunt to the point of being unrecognizable and her face was weathered, I still recognized her at a glance. It was Luna. She recognized me too. Her body froze in place, and the mop in her hand clattered to the floor. She looked at the expensive bespoke suit I was wearing, then at the radiant Sophia by my side, and at the child cradled in Sophia's arms, her eyes full of despair and numbness. Worlds apart, these four characters most truthfully described our situation at this moment. Mr. Ethan. Her lips trembled, unable to form a complete sentence. Sophia glanced at me, then at her, and in an instant understood. She said nothing, only held the child and stood quietly beside me. I took off my suit jacket and handed it to Sophia, then pulled a wad of cash from my wallet and tossed it at Luna's feet. You've dirt in my pants. This money should be enough compensation. My tone was like I was brushing off an insignificant beggar. Luna stared at the money on the ground, her body shaking violently. What an utter humiliation. She suddenly looked up, her eyes bloodshot as she stared at me. Ethan, do you have to humiliate me like this? Humiliate? I laughed. Miss Luna, have you forgotten that a year ago, it was right here that you used my card to charge $1 million on a bag? And I was back at the company, frantic over a project. Why didn't you feel like you were humiliating me then? Luna's face went pale, then flushed, then pale again. Take the money and get out. I couldn't be bothered to argue with her anymore. I took Sophia's hand and walked away. Behind me came her suppressed, uncontrollable sobs. That crying could no longer stir even the slightest ripple in my heart. I thought my entanglement with Luna should end there. Unexpectedly, a few days later, I received a call from the police. Luna had been arrested. The charge was intentional injury. She stabbed the Jake who had once cheated her out of money. Apparently, that day she was working at the club and happened to run into Jake, who was leisurely wrapped around a wealthy woman. Not only did Jake show no hint of remorse, he even mocked her publicly, calling her one of the worn-out shoes he'd slept with. Luna's long-suppressed resentment and despair exploded in an instant. She grabbed a fruit knife from the kitchen and stabbed Jake 3 times from behind. Each strike aimed for a vital spot. Jake was rushed to the hospital and is still in surgery, his life hanging in the balance. As for Luna, she was arrested on the spot. Because I was her ex-husband, the police needed me to make some routine statements. In the detention room, I saw her again. She was wearing a prison uniform, handcuffed, her hair messy, her eyes vacant. In just over a year, it was as if all her energy and spirit had been drained, leaving her a walking corpse. When she saw me, a glimmer finally returned to her hollow eyes. Ethan, she spoke in a hoarse voice. I'm sorry. I regret it. She looked at me, tears slipping down silently. I really regret it. If I hadn't been so delirious back then, would we still be okay now? There is no if. I interrupted her calmly. The path is the one you chose. From a moment you betrayed me, there was no longer any possibility between us. I looked at her. There was no pity in my heart, nor any hatred. Only a void remained. I came today just to tell you one thing. I took out my phone and showed her a photo. It was Sophia holding our son, smiling brightly in the sunlight. I'm very happy, I said, happier than I ever was with you. Those words became the final straw that broke her. She stared at the photo, first dumbfounded, then letting out a beast-like, despairing roar. She lunged forward, trying to snatch my phone, but the cold handcuffs and the railing held her fast. Ah! She cried and shouted hysterically, cursing, and finally collapsed to the ground like a puddle of mud. I put away my phone and turned away coldly. The police led me out of the holding room and said to me, "Thank you for your cooperation." I nodded and walked out of the station. The sunlight outside was somewhat blinding. I looked up and squinted. Everything was over. Those dark, filthy, unbearable pasts were, with the closing of that iron gate, forever left behind. Jake still couldn't be saved in the end. He died. Luna was convicted of intentional homicide and sentenced to life imprisonment. I didn't attend the sentencing hearing. It was Sophia who told me the outcome. She said George fainted from crying in the courtroom. A tragic scene of the old seeing off the young. I listened, only nodded, and continued feeding my son his supplementary food. "What are you thinking about?" Sophia hugged me from behind. "Just thinking about what to have for dinner," I said with a smile. Sophia smiled too and kissed my face. "Whatever you say." A few years later, my business empire had spread across the entire country. The name Ethan became an insurmountable legend in the business world. As for me, I gradually faded from the public eye, giving more of my time to my family. I enjoy staying with Sophia, watching her handle various complex investment cases, and I also enjoy taking our son to the park to fly kites. Plain, yet incredibly happy. Occasionally, I also see some reports about the past in the corners of financial news. Former chairman of Walker Group, Derek, died in prison of illness. Carter Enterprises went bankrupt, and the former chairman George ended up on the streets, ultimately freezing to death one winter night. Every name represented a shameful past. But now, to me, they were just symbols. Symbols to remind me never to make the same mistakes again. This day was the anniversary of my marriage to Sophia. We didn't celebrate extravagantly. As usual, we just had a cozy dinner. That night, after our son fell asleep, Sophia leaned against me and flipped through our old photos. "Honey," she suddenly asked, "have you ever regretted it?" "Regret what?" "Regret. The things you went through before you met me." I lowered my head and kissed her forehead. "No regrets." I looked at her, my gaze utterly serious. Because at the end of those roads is you. If those betrayals and injuries hadn't happened, I wouldn't have been reborn. If I hadn't been reborn, I wouldn't have met Sophia. So, I have no regrets. I even am grateful for that experience. It was it that shattered my past, foolish self. It was also it that granted me the fortune of meeting the true light of my life. Outside the window, the moonlight was gentle. I embraced the love of my life, my heart at peace. My life has only just begun. "George, I've got good news and bad news. Which do you want to hear first?" I put down my paintbrush and looked at my friend Frank. He stood at the studio door with a mysterious air, his face a mix of nervousness and excitement. "Let's start with the bad news. After all, I've gotten used to it these past 3 years. Your painting, Eternity, just sold for a sky-high price. Over $6 million. I frowned. "How is that bad news?" Frank chuckled. "Because it's actually part of the good news. The bad news is, buddy, you might need to see a psychiatrist." "What do you mean?" "A woman who looks exactly like Mary showed up at your art exhibition. I almost thought I was seeing a ghost." The paintbrush slipped from my hand and fell to the floor, splattering paint across the unfinished canvas. "Mary, my late wife, died 3 years ago after accidentally falling off a cliff. I watched with my own eyes as her body was pulled from the water. In that moment, my world completely collapsed." "Stop joking around, Frank. Why would I lie to you?" "She even left this." Frank handed me a note, with an address and a time written on it. My hand trembled slightly. The handwriting was exactly the same as Mary's. That night, I waited until midnight at the designated cafe. Just as I was about to leave, a familiar figure appeared at the door. "Mary?" No, it couldn't be her. But every gesture of that woman, from the tips of her hair to her fingertips, was a shadow of Mary. "George, it's been a long time." She sat across from me, and the familiar voice nearly made my heart stop. "Who are you?" I struggled to remain calm. "I'm Mary, your wife." She smiled and reached out her hand. There was a scar on her palm, the mark Mary got when she accidentally cut herself on glass at 15. "Impossible. Mary is already dead." She laughed softly. That was just an accident. I fell off the cliff and was saved by a reclusive old doctor. I lost my memory from the injuries and only recently remembered everything. As she spoke, tears began to fall with an expression I knew all too well, the look Mary wore whenever she felt wronged. I know it's hard to believe, but I really am Mary. I couldn't believe my eyes. The shade of lipstick Mary loved most, the faint little mole beneath her left ear, the unconscious habit of rubbing her ring while speaking. Everything was so familiar. Are you really Mary? She nodded and took a small box out of her bag. This is the proof. Inside the box was the first piece of jewelry Mary ever designed. A sapphire ring, the only one of its kind, never mass-produced. I brought it with me that day because I wanted to surprise you. I suddenly stood up and pulled her into my arms. 3 years of longing surged over me like a tide. I held her tightly, afraid that if I let go, she would disappear again. On the way home, she told me about her experiences over the past 3 years. She was rescued by an old doctor in the mountains, lost her memory due to a severe head injury, and lived in a remote mountain village for more than 2 years. It wasn't until she happened to see a poster for my art exhibition that her memory gradually returned. The next day, I took her to see Frank. Oh my God, it really is you, Mary. Frank stared in astonishment, eyes wide. Frank, it's been a long time. She greeted him with a smile, exactly as I remembered. Frank pulled me aside and whispered, Man, this is unbelievable, but I really believe it's her. Who else but Mary could call me by my childhood nickname so accurately? That was something only the two of you knew. A week later, Mary officially returned. We held a small welcome party for her. Her mother was so overwhelmed that she fainted, and when she woke up, she clung to her daughter and refused to let go. But that night, I noticed the first sign that something was off. Mary never ate mangoes because she was severely allergic. Yet the returned Mary absent-mindedly tasted a mango dessert and was perfectly fine. Aren't you allergic to mangoes? I asked. She paused for a moment, then quickly laughed and said, Oh, that old Chinese doctor cured my allergy. He's really amazing. I nodded, but in my heart, I marked the first question mark. Is this really my wife? A month passed quickly, and Mary blended perfectly into our lives. She knew the location of every item in the house, remembered our shared memories, and could even accurately name friends we hadn't contacted in years. But those subtle feelings of discord kept growing. For example, the real Mary liked to listen to classical music, especially Debussy, while designing jewelry. But she would always unconsciously hum along to pop songs. Mary always habitually used her left hand to hold chopsticks, even though she knew it was wrong. She just couldn't change. But she was a standard right-handed user. The most obvious difference appeared that night when I accidentally caught her smoking in the bedroom. The real Mary hated the smell of smoke. Even when I came home from social events with a faint scent of cigarettes, she would frown. When did you start smoking? I stood at the doorway, my voice soft. She was clearly startled, hastily snuffing out the cigarette. This is a herbal cigarette for treating insomnia, prescribed by an old Chinese doctor. I nodded, not pressing further, but the doubts in my heart only grew deeper. The next day, I went to find Frank. Help me check if, in the past 3 years, plastic surgery technology has advanced enough to achieve this level. Frank's eyes widened. You mean, she's not Mary? I'm not sure, but there are always some things that don't add up. 2 days later, Frank brought news. High-end plastic surgery can make faces look similar, but it can't replicate the exact placement of scars or moles. And there's a limit to how well someone can imitate a voice. What if it was a twin? Frank shook his head. Mary is an only child. We all know that. I decided not to show my feelings for now and to keep observing. A week later, Mary's mother came to my house with astonishing news. George, Mary is going to have a baby, my mother-in-law told me excitedly. I stood there stunned. Before we got married, Mary had been diagnosed with uterine hypoplasia. The doctor had made it clear she could never get pregnant. This was our shared secret. Not even my mother-in-law knew. How do you know that? I managed to ask. Mary told me this morning. She said she already had a checkup. It's been 2 months. My mother-in-law happily grabbed my hand. It's a blessing from above. Mary survived death, and now she can bring us new life. My heart sank to the bottom. This absolutely could not be Mary. That night, I dug out the hospital's diagnosis certificate in my study, which clearly stated the condition of Mary's uterus. But when I wanted to talk to Mary about it, I found her in the bedroom, excitedly discussing the decoration of the nursery with my mother-in-law. "Mary, could you come here for a moment?" I called her calmly. She followed me into the study, still wearing a blissful smile on her face. "Did you forget about this?" I handed her the diagnosis certificate. She took it and glanced at it, her face instantly turning pale. "George, I can explain." "Explain what?" "Explain that you're not Mary at all." Mother-in-law heard the commotion and walked in. "What's going on with you two?" "Mom, take a look at this." I handed her the proof. My mother-in-law read it, then looked at Mary in astonishment. "What's going on?" "Mary, you can't have children." "Of course she can," I sneered, "because she's not Mary at all." My mother-in-law's face changed dramatically. "What nonsense are you talking about?" "I can explain." She hurriedly grabbed my mother-in-law's hand. "That old Chinese doctor not only saved my life, but also cured my uterine problem. It's a miracle, truly." My mother-in-law looked at me, then at her, hesitating. "George, you're being too paranoid." My mother-in-law finally took her daughter's side. "Mary has come back with great difficulty. You should cherish her, not doubt her." "Yes, George, I know this is hard to accept, but miracles do happen." Tears welled up in her eyes. "Haven't we always wanted a child? Now we can finally have our own baby." I looked at her face, identical to Mary's, yet I became more certain in my heart. This woman was not my wife. "All right, I believe you." I smiled, deciding to go along with their story for now. Let's wait together for this miracle to happen. That night, I secretly contacted a private detective. My mother-in-law gladly accepted her daughter's explanation, even suggesting she move in with us to take care of Mary during her pregnancy. Outwardly, I agreed, but inside I grew even more wary. This was no coincidence. There had to be some kind of plot. "Mom, haven't you always lived in Haicheng? Won't it be hard to get used to living here?" I probed cautiously. "For my grandson, I'm willing to endure any inconvenience," my mother-in-law said firmly. I noticed a fleeting unnatural expression on Mary's face. Could the truth be connected to my mother-in-law? On the third day after my mother-in-law moved in, I discovered more suspicious details. For example, the real Mary never drank coffee, but she and my mother-in-law often enjoyed it together. Also, Mary's favorite movie was Roman Holiday, but she claimed to prefer Titanic. The strangest thing is, Mary used to despise her cousin Tom when she was alive, but now he visits frequently and chats and laughs with Mary as if they're old friends. I told Frank about these discoveries. "Buddy, things are getting more and more suspicious," Frank frowned. "Are you sure you want to keep going like this? Why not just expose her directly?" "It's not the right time yet. I want to find out what they're really after." The private detective's investigation also made progress. The so-called old Chinese doctor who had saved Mary did not exist at all, and Mary's whereabouts over the past 3 years were completely untraceable. More importantly, the private detective uncovered a shocking fact during the investigation. Mary's cousin Tom was deeply in debt from gambling, and the painting Eternity under my name, worth over $6 million, was his only hope for quick cash. "They're after your painting," the private detective asserted, "and this fake Mary is likely a professional identity fraudster, hired to win your trust." I took a deep breath and decided to take the initiative. That afternoon, I pretended to go out, but secretly returned home and hid in the study. Sure enough, Mary and her cousin Tom were whispering to each other in the living room. "It's taking too long," Tom said irritably. "How much longer until he sells the painting?" "Don't worry," she soothed him. "I'm already pregnant, and now he completely believes I'm Mary. In a little while, I'll say I want to move to a better neighborhood for the sake of the baby, and then we'll naturally need to sell the painting to raise money." "You're really pregnant?" "That wasn't part of the plan. It was an accident, but it works to our advantage. George wants a child so badly." "Does Annie know the truth?" "She only knows we're trying to scam money, not the specific plan. But she hates George, thinks he caused her daughter's death, so she's more than happy to help." I clenched my fists. So my mother-in-law had always believed that Mary's accident was somehow my fault. In fact, we did argue over something trivial that day, and Mary stormed out in anger. I didn't try to stop her. But I never imagined it would be the last time I'd see her. "You don't actually have feelings for George, do you?" Tom suddenly asked. She was silent for a moment. "It's just part of the job. Besides, I owe you, and I won't go back on my word." "Good then. Don't forget how we're splitting the money once we get it." Their conversation confirmed my suspicions. This was all an elaborate scheme, with my eternity as the target. In the days that followed, I pretended everything was normal while secretly making preparations. I contacted the police, arranged for evidence-gathering equipment, and found the last piece Mary had left before she died, a silver necklace that had never been made public, engraved with an anniversary date only the two of us knew. 2 weeks later, my art exhibition was held as scheduled. As planned, Mary brought up the idea of moving, hinting that I could sell eternity. I pretended to agree and said I would auction the painting on the last day of the exhibition. "This is a surprise I prepared for you," I said on the eve of the exhibition, taking out a delicate box. "To celebrate the new life we're about to begin." She opened the box in surprise, and inside was the silver necklace. "It's beautiful, thank you." She smiled as she prepared to put it on. "Wait," I stopped her. "Aren't you going to look at the engraving on the back?" She turned the necklace over, and her face suddenly went pale. "What's wrong? Don't you like it?" I asked, feigning ignorance. "No, I really like it. It's just, I'm a bit moved." She forced a smile, but didn't know how to explain that she couldn't recognize the significance of that date. "See you tomorrow. Get some good rest, and don't forget to wear this necklace." I kissed her forehead and whispered in her ear, "After all, this is your final design." Her body visibly stiffened for a moment, but she kept smiling. "Of course, I cherish it very much. Tomorrow, the truth will come to light." On the day of the exhibition, the place was packed with people. My painting, Eternity, was displayed in the most prominent spot, right next to the last batch of jewelry designs Mary had created before her death. Mary held my arm, flawlessly playing the role of my wife as always. She had even gone out of her way to wear Mary's favorite white dress and the silver necklace I had given her last night. My mother-in-law and Tom were there too. The three of them exchanged glances from time to time, clearly waiting for the perfect moment. Frank appeared as planned, pretending to be extremely interested in Eternity and asking me about the auction details. "The auction will begin promptly at 4 in the afternoon, I replied with a smile. "This painting means a great deal to me, and I hope it finds someone who truly appreciates it." Mary immediately chimed in. "Yes, although it's hard to part with it, this is a necessary decision for our future." I noticed she glanced at Tom, who gave a barely perceptible nod. At 3:30 in the afternoon, the projector in the center of the exhibition hall lit up. This was the special segment I had arranged. "Ladies and gentlemen, I stood in front of Eternity. Before the auction begins, I'd like to share a little story about this painting." Mary's photo appeared on the projection screen, a group picture from her last birthday party before she passed away. 3 years ago, my wife Mary died in an accident. I created this painting, Eternity, in her memory. The woman in the painting has her back to the viewer, forever gazing into the distance, symbolizing a longing I can never reach. A soft sigh rippled through the crowd. Mary stood beside me, matching my words with a sorrowful expression. However, a month ago, a miracle happened. I turned to look at Mary. My wife came back. The whole room erupted in astonishment, and many people curiously sized up Mary. "This is my wife, Mary." I took her hand and stepped forward. "Back from the dead, it's truly the greatest blessing heaven could have given me." She smiled and nodded to everyone, while my mother-in-law and Tom stood by with smug expressions. However, my tone suddenly shifted. Amidst my joy, a question arose. "Is she really Mary?" The entire room fell silent. Mary's hand trembled slightly in my palm. So, I did some investigating. The projector switched to a set of comparison photos. On the left was the real Mary. On the right was a photo of her. They look exactly the same, don't they? But I clicked the remote, and the photo was enlarged, the details highlighted. The position of the piercing on the left ear was slightly different, the arch of the eyebrows subtly varied, and the fine lines at the corners of the eyes ran in different directions. These are details that even professional plastic surgery cannot fully replicate. Mary tried to pull her hand away, but I held on tightly. My mother-in-law and Tom also began to grow anxious, glancing toward the exit. More importantly, the real Mary has a feature that cannot be copied. I turned to Mary. "The necklace I gave you last night has a date engraved on the back. Can you tell everyone what that date is?" She opened her mouth, but no words came out. "That was the due date of our first child, the one we lost." I spoke softly, my voice trembling with emotion. "Mary designed this necklace to commemorate the baby we never got to meet. The date was our secret, only Mary and I knew. The room fell utterly silent. Mary turned deathly pale, my mother-in-law's eyes widened, and Tom had already started edging toward the door. What surprised me even more, I continued, was that the real Mary could never get pregnant due to an underdeveloped uterus. Yet this, Mary claims she's already 2 months along. I let go of her hand and took a step back. So, who are you really? A flicker of despair flashed in Mary's eyes, but she quickly regained her composure. I am Mary, it's just that old Chinese doctor. The non-existent old Chinese doctor, right? I sneered. Just like the non-existent amnesia, the non-existent miraculous recovery. I turned toward the projection screen. Let's see the truth. The screen played the secretly recorded video of her conversation with Tom, their discussion on how to swindle eternity, clearly audible. This isn't. She tried to explain, but my mother-in-law had already rushed forward. Who are you really? My mother-in-law screamed. You're not my daughter? Auntie, stop pretending, I said calmly. You know she's not Mary. You just wanted to get back at me, didn't you? My mother-in-law's face turned pale. I didn't know she was going to impersonate Mary. Tom just said he needed help to scam some money. Police. Don't move. Several plainclothes officers emerged from the crowd, blocking Tom as he tried to escape. Amid the chaos, Mary took the opportunity to shove me aside and run toward the exit. I chased after her and caught up in the parking lot. Tell me, who are you really? She finally stopped, turned to face me, tears welling in her eyes. My name is Luna. I'm an actress. Tom found me and said if I helped trick you out of a painting, he'd give me $1 million. I needed the money for my sister's medical treatment. Why did they choose me? Why Mary? She shook her head. I don't know. They gave me a lot of information, photos, videos, even your chat logs. I was just following the script. The police arrived and took her away. I stood where I was, gazing at the distant sky, my heart a tumult of emotions. Back in the exhibition hall, the crowd had already dispersed, leaving only Frank and a few police officers. It's all been cleared up, Frank walked over. Tom owed money to loan sharks and was desperate. Your mother-in-law always resented you for not saving Mary, so she helped them plan the whole thing. I walked up to eternity, gently caressing the back of the woman in the painting. Mary, I can finally give you an answer. The police left with the evidence. Frank patted me on the shoulder. What do you plan to do next? I took a deep breath. Prepare for the final painting. What will it be called? The Pursuit, I said softly. This time, I'll paint her face, not just her back. After the case was solved, my life seemed to return to where it was 3 years ago. Eternity was temporarily held by the court as crucial evidence. Tom and Luna were arrested for fraud, and my mother-in-law was investigated as an accomplice. The prosecution wants you to testify in court, the officer called to inform me. The trial is scheduled for early next month. I agreed, though I was utterly exhausted inside. After exposing the deception, I thought I would feel the thrill of revenge, but what I felt instead was a profound emptiness. Those days spent with Mary that month had allowed me to feel a trace of warmth in life again, even if that warmth was born of lies. Frank often came to see me, worried I might fall into despair once more. I told him not to worry, that I was working on a new piece, The Pursuit. Are you really going to paint Mary's face from the front? Frank asked curiously. For the past 3 years, you've always refused to do that. It's time, I replied. We can't live in the past forever. I moved out of the apartment I had shared with Mary and returned to the old house in the suburbs, the place where the real Mary and I had first made our home. The dust-laden memories in the house brought me both pain and comfort. Mary's studio remained just as she had left it, design sketches scattered across the table, unfinished jewelry drafts pinned to the drawing board. One afternoon, while sorting through Mary's belongings, I discovered an encrypted external hard drive. After several attempts, I finally unlocked it using our wedding anniversary as the password. Inside were backups of Mary's design works, along with some personal photos and videos. One folder in particular caught my attention. Inside a folder named Plan was a series of jewelry design sketches, labeled George's Birthday Special Project. It was then I remembered that, in the months before Mary passed away, she often spoke mysteriously about giving me an unparalleled birthday surprise. Leafing through these design drafts, I couldn't help but be moved to tears. Mary had planned to design a jewelry collection inspired by my paintings over the years, with each piece corresponding to a representative work from my artistic career. The last page was a sketch of a ring, with a dark red stone set in the center, its edges adorned with tiny diamonds, closely resembling the sunrise in my early work, Dawn. This is blood amber? I examined the notes carefully, confirming the name of this rare gemstone. Mary's designs had always been bold, but blood amber is extremely rare in the Chinese market, almost impossible to acquire. How did she obtain such a material? As I continued searching, I found a series of email correspondence screenshots. Mary had actually contacted a gemstone dealer in Myanmar, commissioning the blood amber specifically for this ring. The last email showed that the gem had already been shipped, but the date was exactly 1 week before Mary's death. I immediately called Frank. Help me check if there was a package sent from Myanmar 3 years ago, addressed to Mary. 2 days later, Frank brought news. The package did exist, but since no one signed for it, it was returned. However, according to the shipping records, it was resent a month ago, this time addressed to you. What? I was completely confused. I haven't received any package. Check your old apartment? Frank suggested. Back at my old apartment, the manager told me there was indeed a package, but it had been signed for by Mary. She said it was a surprise for you, so she didn't notify you, the manager explained. This meant Luna had taken the blood amber. I rushed to the detention center and requested to see Luna. Separated by glass, she looked much more haggard than the last time we met, but still wore that face so similar to Mary's. What are you doing here? She asked coldly. A month ago, you signed for a package from Myanmar. There was a blood amber inside. I want to know where it is. She looked surprised. How did you know? Tom asked me to sign for it. He said it was some precious gem. He took it. My heart sank. Tom was deep in gambling debt. A precious blood amber would be a windfall for him. He had probably sold it long ago. That blood amber is very important to me, I said softly. It was the last gift my wife left me. Luna was silent for a moment, then suddenly said, maybe it's not that bad. Tom said the stone has flaws, its value is greatly reduced, and he hasn't found a suitable buyer yet. Hope was rekindled. If Tom hadn't sold the blood amber yet, maybe there was still a chance to get it back. Do you know where he might hide it? Luna hesitated for a moment. He has a safe deposit box in a self-storage facility on the east side of the city. After getting the address, I immediately contacted the officer in charge of the case and explained the situation. Since Tom was involved in a large sum of money, the police quickly approved the search request. Mr. George, we've found the safe deposit box, the officer said over the phone. Inside, we did find the blood amber you described, as well as some other evidence. A few hours later, I retrieved the blood amber at the police station. It was even more beautiful than I had imagined. Within the dark red core, wisps of mist seemed to swirl, shifting strangely under the light. This was the birthday gift Mary had so carefully chosen for me, waiting for 3 years. Back home, I carefully placed the blood amber beside the canvas of the pursuit. The painting was already more than half finished, Mary's face emerging from the blur into clarity, yet it still felt like something was missing. Watching the blood amber glimmer faintly under the light, I suddenly understood how I should complete the painting. The creation of the pursuit entered its final stage. I decided to break convention and incorporate the blood amber into the artwork. This would not only be a portrait, but a hybrid piece that fused painting with the art of jewelry. Are you sure you want to do this? Frank frowned. That blood amber is priceless. That's exactly why, I said firmly. Mary chose it for me. She wanted to inspire an unparalleled masterpiece. I will fulfill her wish. For 2 whole weeks, I worked day and night, neglecting sleep and food. I cut the blood amber into thin slices and inlaid them at the spot of Mary's eyes on the canvas, making her gaze truly come alive. I used a special technique to blend the surrounding paint, creating a harmonious transition with the gemstone. From certain angles, the entire painting seemed to be imbued with life, and Mary's expression would shift depending on where the viewer stood. On the day I finished the piece, Frank brought news. Luna had been sentenced to 3 years in prison, but due to her good attitude in confessing, she might serve only 1.5 years. Tom, involved in multiple fraud cases, was sentenced to 7 years. My mother-in-law, as an accomplice, received a suspended sentence. The case is finally over, Frank said. Are you planning to exhibit your painting? Yes. Next month there will be a solo exhibition at the National Art Museum, and The Pursuit will be the grand finale. The curator couldn't stop praising this piece. believing it represents the innovative direction of contemporary art and marks the pinnacle of my career. Indeed, this painting, which incorporates Mary's jewelry design concepts, is in some sense a creation we made together. On the eve of the exhibition, I checked the arrangement in the gallery alone one last time, making sure every piece was perfectly lit and positioned. When I reached The Pursuit, I couldn't help but stop and gaze at it. Mary's face was vividly lifelike, her eyes inlaid with blood amber gleaming under the spotlight, as if she were smiling at me. For the first time in 3 years, I faced her directly, no longer painting only her back. "Mr. George," a stranger's voice called from behind. "Sorry to disturb you, but the gallery has been cleared." He turned around to see a young woman dressed in the museum's staff uniform. "And you are?" "I'm the new curator, responsible for security in your exhibition area," she explained with a smile. "I really like your work, especially this piece, The Pursuit." "Thank you." I nodded. "I'll be leaving soon." She didn't leave, but continued to gaze at the painting. "That red gem is beautiful, almost as if it's alive." "It's blood amber," I explained, "a very rare gemstone." "I know," she said softly, "top-grade blood amber from Myanmar, containing plant fossils, extremely rare." I looked at her in surprise. "You know a lot about jewelry?" She smiled. "I studied jewelry design. I'm just working part-time here." For some reason, Mary suddenly came to mind. She, too, had an almost obsessive passion for and expertise in gemstones. "If you don't mind me asking, who is the woman in this painting?" she asked. "My wife," I replied. "She passed away 3 years ago. She was a jewelry designer." "I'm very sorry," she said sincerely, then gestured toward the blood amber. "This gem must mean a great deal to you. It was the last birthday gift she chose for me before she died, but I only found it recently." She nodded thoughtfully. "Setting it into her portrait is the best way to remember her." For some reason, talking with this unfamiliar woman brought me a strange sense of calm. Perhaps it was her love for jewelry that reminded me of Mary. "Sorry, I have to continue my rounds." She glanced at her watch. "See you tomorrow, Mr. George." "See you tomorrow," I replied, watching her leave. On the way home, I felt an unusual peace. The completion of The Pursuit seemed to mark the end of my search for Mary as well. Not forgetting, but remembering her forever in another way. The next day, the exhibition's opening ceremony attracted numerous figures from the art world and the media. The Pursuit undoubtedly became the center of attention, with people marveling at this innovative form of artistic expression. Amid the crowd, I noticed that curator standing aside, watching as well. Sunlight streamed through the skylight of the gallery, falling upon her, and for a fleeting moment, I thought I saw Mary's shadow. No, I shook my head, warning myself not to be deceived by mere resemblance. There would never be another Mary in this world, just as there would never be another unique blood amber. After the exhibition, The Pursuit was purchased by an anonymous collector for an astronomical price. I donated all the proceeds to a foundation supporting students in jewelry design, establishing a scholarship in Mary's name. Life slowly moved forward, and I began to accept new commissions and create new works. Occasionally, I would think of that curator with a unique insight into jewelry, wondering if she was still working at the art museum. Until one day, I received an email from HL. There were no words, only an image. A sketch of a ring design, the style strikingly similar to Mary's unfinished series. My heart raced as I replied immediately. "Who is this?" The response came quickly. "Yesterday, you brushed past me by the cafe on the street corner, but you didn't recognize me. If you want to know more, wait for me at the museum entrance at noon tomorrow." Is it that librarian? How could she have a design so reminiscent of Mary's style? Filled with anxiety and anticipation, I decided to accept the invitation and find out for myself. The next day at noon, I arrived at the art museum half an hour early. The sun was shining, and small groups of visitors were coming and going from the exhibition hall. But there was no sign of the mysterious person. Just as I began to suspect this might be some kind of prank, a faint trace of perfume drifted by, a scent unfamiliar to me, yet it inexplicably reminded me of Mary. "Mr. George, thank you for coming." The voice behind me made me turn around. It was the curator. Today, she wasn't wearing her uniform, but a simple white dress, completely different from Mary's style when she was alive. "Did you send the email?" I asked directly. She nodded. "There are some things I want to tell you, but not here. Will you come with me?" We walked through the small park beside the art museum and arrived at a secluded cafe. The whole time, I kept observing her. Her mannerisms, the way she walked, none of it resembled Mary. Yet her sensitivity to detail and her focused attention gave me a strange sense of familiarity. Who are you, really? The moment we sat down, I couldn't wait to ask. My name is Nicole. She looked me straight in the eye. I'm Mary's student. This answer caught me off guard. Mary had indeed taught jewelry design part-time at the Design Academy before she passed away, but she had never mentioned having any particularly close students. I took her advanced design class the year before she passed, Nicole explained. Her guidance benefited me for a lifetime. That still doesn't explain why your designs resemble her style so much, I said, half convinced. Nicole took a folder out of her bag. These are all notes from Ms. Nicole's class and her feedback on my work. You can look at the handwriting and confirm that it's really hers. I carefully examined the materials. It was indeed Mary's handwriting. There were even traces of the pale purple ink she habitually used. Before Ms. Nicole passed away, she was guiding me on my graduation project, Nicole continued. The theme was interwoven light and shadow, blending Eastern and Western aesthetic elements. She gave me a lot of valuable advice and even showed me a sketch from a private project she was working on at the time. George's special birthday project? I blurted out. Nicole's eyes widened in surprise. You know about it? I only found out recently. I briefly explained the origin of the blood amber. I knew that blood amber would eventually find its way back to you, Nicole said with a smile. Nicole always said it was a destined gift. Is that why you contacted me? Because you saw the blood amber? Nicole was silent for a moment, as if choosing her words carefully. Not entirely. After Nicole passed away, I've been trying to carry on the design philosophy she taught me. Some time ago, I happened to see the news about your eternity being stolen, and then I saw someone impersonating Nicole. I thought I should tell you a few things. She took a letter out of her bag. This is the last letter Nicole gave me after class before she passed away. She said if her surprise plan went smoothly, I should show you this letter. If anything went wrong and she was gone, I should still make sure you see it. I took the envelope. It was indeed Mary's handwriting, and it read, "To my dearest husband." The envelope had already been opened. I didn't know what was in the letter at the time. I just kept it as Nicole instructed, Nicole explained. It wasn't until I saw the news that I opened it. I hope you won't blame me. I carefully took out the letter paper and unfolded it to read. Dear George, if you are reading this letter, perhaps my surprise plan has gone awry. Don't worry, it's just that the plan has changed, and the form of the gift may be different now. The blood amber I picked for you is said to be known as the Eye of Rebirth. Legend has it that looking at the world through it reveals truths that are often overlooked. I hope it can become a turning point in your artistic career, leading you to see new possibilities. All these years, your paintings have always depicted backs, as if you're afraid to face something head-on. I hope this gemstone will give you the courage to paint the front, to capture true emotions. No matter what happens, please remember, love does not disappear, it merely changes form, like this blood amber, which, after millions of years, transforms from resin into a gem, yet still shines. Forever loving you, Mary. The handwriting became a bit messy at the end, as if written in a hurry. I stroked the paper, as if I could feel Mary's emotions at that moment. Thank you, I said, my voice choked with emotion. This means a lot to me. You're welcome. I'm just fulfilling Ms. Nicole's request, Nicole said with a smile. Actually, there's one more thing I'd like to ask your help with. What is it? I'd like to apply for the Mary Scholarship you established, she said, taking a design portfolio out of her bag. This is my graduation project, combining Ms. Nicole's ideas with my own innovations. As I flipped through the portfolio, I was surprised to find that while these designs bore traces of Mary's influence, they also possessed a unique style and innovative touches. In particular, a series called Metamorphosis cleverly combined jewelry with transformable elements, allowing the pieces to change form according to the wearer's mood and occasion. This is outstanding, I praised sincerely. Mary would be proud of you. A hint of joy flashed in Nicole's eyes. Really? I've always worried I couldn't live up to her expectations. You've already moved beyond the learning stage and developed your own style. That's exactly what she hoped to see. As we talked, sunlight streamed through the window and fell on Nicole. In that moment, I seemed to understand something. When Mary spoke of love changing its form, perhaps she wasn't just referring to the blood amber, but also to her passion for art and its legacy. Luna tried to impersonate Mary by mimicking her appearance, but she could never truly replicate who she was. Nicole, on the other hand, looked nothing like Mary, yet she inherited a part of her artistic vision and spirit. Perhaps this is the true gift Mary left me, not the blood amber, but a new possibility, a path out of the past. Nicole's graduation exhibition was held in a small gallery. Though the space was modest, it was exquisitely arranged. Her works were divided into 3 series, representing the past, the present, and the future, forming a complete narrative. This is a brilliant idea, I sincerely praised. From tradition to contemporary and then to the future, it showcases the evolution and possibilities of jewelry design. Nicole smiled and nodded. This was inspired by teacher Nicole. She always says that good design should look back at history, be grounded in the present, and look forward to the future. As I walked through the exhibition hall, I noticed a special display case in the corner, containing only one piece, a seemingly simple ring with a small red gemstone set in the center. This is. I leaned in to read the label, which said, in memory, dedicated to teacher Mary. Yes, I made it from a small piece of blood amber I bought with my own savings, Nicole explained. It can't compare to the quality of yours, but it's also from Myanmar. I examined the design of the ring closely. Clean, powerful lines, with fine silver threads encircling the blood amber, as if protecting the central gem, yet also seeming to radiate light outward. This is very similar to Mary's final design style, I said softly, but it also has your own unique touch. I wanted to create a piece that could both commemorate teacher Nicole and showcase my own style, Nicole explained. The blood amber represents her influence, while the outer design is the direction of my own development. The exhibition attracted quite a few industry insiders, including some well-known figures from the jewelry design world. After viewing the exhibition, an older female designer approached Nicole and offered her an internship opportunity. I stood by, genuinely happy for Nicole. In the evening, as the exhibition was drawing to a close, Frank arrived as well. Seeing me with Nicole, he gave me a knowing smile. New friend? He asked me quietly. Mary's student, I explained simply. Very talented. Frank nodded without asking further questions. After touring the exhibition, he gave high praise to Nicole's work. It blends traditional and modern elements, demonstrating both technical skill and artistic expression, quite rare. Nicole thanked him politely. This wouldn't have been possible without the guidance of teacher Nicole and teacher George. After the exhibition, the 3 of us went to a nearby restaurant for dinner. During the meal, Frank talked about recent trends in the art market, while Nicole shared her insights on contemporary jewelry design. The conversation was light and pleasant, and I realized it had been a long time since I had relaxed and chatted with others like this. After a few rounds of drinks, Frank received an urgent call and left early. Only Nicole and I remained in the restaurant, and the atmosphere suddenly became a bit quiet. Mr. George, Nicole hesitated for a moment before speaking. I've always had a question I wanted to ask you. What is it? After you finished the pursuit, what are you planning to create next? The question caught me off guard. To be honest, ever since the pursuit, I haven't had any new inspiration. That painting seemed to have drained all my emotions and creativity. I haven't decided yet, I answered honestly. It might take some time to find a new direction. Nicole nodded thoughtfully. Nicole once said that the hardest thing for an artist isn't creating a stunning masterpiece, but finding a way forward after reaching the peak. She really did say that, I recalled with a smile. Mary always saw further than I did. Maybe, Nicole said softly, you could try a new direction that combines your work with jewelry design? Like in The Pursuit, but taking it even further. I recalled what Mary mentioned in her letter about seeing new possibilities, and suddenly I was inspired. You mean, creating a series of works that combine painting and jewelry? Exactly. Nicole said excitedly, your paintings create emotion in 2-dimensional space, while jewelry gives it tangible form in the 3-dimensional world. The combination of the two would have an astonishing effect. The more we talked, the more engaged we became, even sketching a few concept designs on the restaurant's napkins. Nicole's ideas were fresh and bold, perfectly aligning with my artistic vision, yet bringing a new perspective. As we left the restaurant, Nicole suddenly said, I have to confess something. I looked at her in confusion. I reached out to you not only to deliver Nicole's letter, but also for a personal reason. I hope to learn from you, she said candidly. I want to become a designer like Nicole, someone who not only creates beautiful works but also perfectly blends art with emotion. Her sincerity moved me. You're already on that path, and you're doing very well. Then, may I consult you often? She asked a little nervously. Of course, I'd be delighted. On the way home, a series of new works already began to take shape in my mind. A cross-disciplinary art that fuses painting and jewelry, both as a tribute to Mary and as a new starting point in my artistic career. That night, I had a dream. In the dream, Mary stood in a halo of blood-red light, smiling at me and saying, "See, I knew you would find a new direction." When I woke up, I got out of bed immediately and began sketching for the new series. I decided to name it Rebirth. Not only representing the ancient life forever preserved in blood amber, but also symbolizing the rebirth of my artistic career, as well as the inheritance and development of Mary's artistic vision. A week later, I submitted a new series proposal to the gallery and received an enthusiastic response. The curator even suggested holding a special exhibition themed Between Dimensions, a dialogue between painting and jewelry. For this project, I invited Nicole to join the team as a jewelry design consultant. She had just graduated from design school and was both excited and nervous about the opportunity. "Am I really up to the task?" she asked me in the studio. "You understand Mary's design philosophy better than anyone," I assured her. "That's exactly what I need." In the days that followed, we worked at a feverish pace. We created during the day and discussed at night, sometimes even working through until dawn. Nicole's ideas flowed endlessly, and I transformed those thoughts into concrete artistic expressions. In the process, I rediscovered the pure joy of creation that I hadn't felt in a long time. One late night, when we finally finished the design for our first piece, Nicole clapped her hands excitedly. "This is amazing. Teacher Nicole will definitely love it." At the mention of Mary, she suddenly realized her slip and looked at me nervously. "I'm sorry, I didn't mean to." "It's all right," I said with a smile. "I think Mary really would like it." She always hoped I could step out of my comfort zone and try new ways of expressing myself. Nicole let out a sigh of relief, then hesitantly asked, "Professor George, may I ask you a personal question?" "What is it?" "When you faced the woman impersonating Professor Nicole, how did you see through her? I mean, from the news reports, she seemed like an exact copy of Professor Nicole." I pondered for a moment. Superficial resemblance is easy to achieve, but a true personality cannot be duplicated. Mary's perception of art, her attitude toward life, the way she handled details, these were all unique. Just like a work of art, Nicole mused, no matter how perfect a replica is, it can never capture the soul of the original. Exactly. We worked through the night again, and finally established the overall framework for the Rebirth series. 7 pieces, each blending elements of painting and jewelry, together telling a story of loss and recovery, death and rebirth. As our collaboration deepened, my relationship with Nicole gradually shifted from teacher and student to partners, both mentor and friend. Sometimes, when the light traced the gentle contours of her focused profile, I would unconsciously think of Mary. But soon, I realized that this association wasn't due to any physical resemblance, but rather that same dedication and passion for art. "George, you look much more spirited lately," Frank remarked at a gathering. "It's been a while since I've seen you so full of life." "Yeah, the new project has helped me rediscover the joy of creating." "Nicole's a good girl," Frank said meaningfully. "Talented, and she really understands you." I understood his implication, but just smiled without responding. There was indeed a special understanding between Nicole and me, but it was more rooted in our shared passion for art than anything else. At least for now. The creation of the Rebirth series took 3 months, longer than expected, but the results were stunning. Each piece was a perfect fusion of painting and jewelry art, offering both the pleasure of viewing as a flat image and the discovery of 3-dimensional effects brought by the jewelry elements from different angles. A week before the exhibition opened, I received an unexpected visitor, Luna. She had served her sentence and was released early. She looked much more haggard than the last time we met, but her eyes were clearer. "I came to apologize to you in person." She stood at the studio door, her voice low, "for everything I have done." I didn't respond immediately, but simply invited her in to sit down. "I know that an apology can't make up for the loss," she continued, but I want you to know that I truly regret it. How is your sister's illness? I asked. She looked up in surprise. You know. I guessed. You said you needed money for a reason, and I think that must have been true. Yes, she nodded. My sister's surgery was a success, and now she's fully recovered. For the past 3 years, I've been thinking about how to make up for my mistakes. Even though I may never be able to. I was silent for a moment, then said, in a way, your appearance actually helped me. What do you mean? It forced me to confront the past, to re-examine my memories with Mary, and ultimately to find a way forward. I pointed to the sketches of the Rebirth series on the wall and briefly explained this new project. Luna listened quietly, a look of genuine respect in her eyes. I'm glad you were able to find a new beginning from that nightmare, she said at last. I hope I can find my own path to rebirth as well. As she left, she handed me a small package. These are some simple pieces of jewelry I made in prison. The craftsmanship is rough, but each one represents my remorse and blessings. I hope you can accept them. Opening the package, I found several small trinkets handmade from fine wire and colorful glass beads. Though simple, it was clear the creator had poured their heart into them. Nicole happened to come into the studio at that moment. Seeing the trinkets, she asked curiously, "What are these?" I told her about Luna's visit. You forgave her? Nicole was a bit surprised. Not exactly forgiveness. I said thoughtfully, it's more like understanding. Everyone has their own hardships and choices. What's important is how we learn and grow from our mistakes. Nicole nodded pensively, picking up a piece of jewelry to examine it closely. The craftsmanship is rough, but the concept is ingenious. This person seems to have a talent for design. Perhaps, I said, everyone has the possibility of being reborn. On the day of the exhibition opening, numerous figures from the art and jewelry worlds gathered together. The Rebirth series received unprecedented acclaim. Critics called it a model of cross-disciplinary art, and the gallery owner was overjoyed, announcing plans for a nationwide tour. In the crowd, I saw Luna. She was dressed simply, standing quietly in a corner, admiring the exhibits. Our eyes met in the air. She nodded slightly, then walked away. Who was that? Nicole asked, standing beside me. Someone searching for rebirth, I replied. Nicole seemed to understand and asked no more. We stood side by side before the pursuit, watching the blood amber refract a strange light under the lamps, like the silent burning of life's flame. Thank you, I whispered to Nicole. Without you, this series might never have come into being. It was your philosophy that guided us, teacher Nicole, she replied modestly. I was just fortunate enough to be the messenger. In that moment, I suddenly understood the true meaning of what Mary had written in her letter. Love has changed its form. Love exists not only in memory and longing, but also in inheritance and innovation, shining brightly in every spark of artistic creation. And I, at last, had learned how to begin anew after loss, to embrace rebirth while still searching. The success of the exhibition exceeded everyone's expectations. In just 1 month, the Rebirth series was reported on by major media outlets and even attracted the attention of the international art world. A renowned auction house extended an olive branch to me, hoping to include several pieces in their annual highlight auction. This is an unprecedented opportunity, Frank said excitedly. If the deal goes through, you'll become a top player in the contemporary art market. I wasn't particularly concerned with commercial success, but I did feel the joy of having my work widely recognized. More importantly, this series opened up a new artistic path for me, freeing me from the creative shackles of the past 3 years. Nicole benefited as well. As the project's jewelry design consultant, she received high praise from the industry. Several well-known jewelry brands reached out to her, hoping she would join their design teams. Which offer are you planning to accept? One night, as we were tidying up the studio together, I asked her. To be honest, I'm still hesitating. Nicole paused her work. These are all great opportunities, but what? But I want to keep working with you. She looked straight into my eyes. Rebirth is just the beginning, isn't it? Her candor surprised me a little. Indeed, the success of this series had opened up many new creative possibilities for us, but I wasn't sure if I should continue such a close working relationship. You should consider your own career development, I said tactfully. These opportunities are very rare for young designers. Nicole seemed to sense my hesitation and nodded gently. I understand. In the days that followed, We were both busy and rarely had the chance to talk alone. A week later, Nicole told me she had decided to accept an invitation from a French jewelry brand and would be going to Paris to work for 2 years. Congratulations, I said sincerely. It's a very good choice. Thank you, she replied with a smile, though a fleeting, elusive emotion flashed in her eyes. I think this is the best arrangement for both of us. Before Nicole left, we held a small farewell party. Frank, the curator, and a few mutual friends came. The atmosphere was warm, tinged with a hint of sadness. After a few rounds of drinks, Frank found an opportunity to pull me aside. Are you really going to just let her go like this? What do you mean? I pretended not to understand. Don't play dumb, man, Frank said bluntly. You have feelings for her. That's obvious. That's just professional rapport, I argued. Is that so? Frank looked at me meaningfully. Then why have you been so distracted ever since she decided to go to France? I was at a loss for words. In fact, these past few days I had indeed felt an inexplicable sense of loss, but I kept telling myself it was only because I had lost an excellent partner. I know what you're worried about, Frank lowered his voice. You feel like you're letting Mary down, don't you? I remained silent. He had touched upon the deepest concern in my heart. Mary has been gone for 3 years now. Frank gently patted my shoulder. She would want you to be happy. After the party ended, I walked Nicole home. The night was tranquil as water, and the city lights flowed around us. Thank you for your help and guidance these past few months. Nicole stopped at the entrance of her apartment building. This experience has meant so much to me. I should be thanking you, I said sincerely. Without you, the Rebirth series would never have been completed. We fell into silence, as if both searching for the right words to say goodbye. My flight is the morning after tomorrow, Nicole finally said. I still have some things to take care of tomorrow, so this is probably the last time we'll see each other. 2 years will pass quickly. I tried to make my voice sound light. Paris is a beautiful city. You'll like it there. She nodded, a complex emotion flickering in her eyes. Professor George, there's something I've always wanted to tell you, but never found the right opportunity. What is it? I chose to study jewelry design because I saw Nicole's works. She took a deep breath, or more precisely, because I saw the pieces Nicole designed for you. The way she perfectly fused love and art moved me deeply. I didn't know that, I said in surprise. I've always hoped that one day I could be like Nicole, creating art filled with emotion. Nicole continued, her words coming faster, as if afraid she might lose her courage. But now I realize that what I want even more is to create for a specific person, just like Nicole created for you. I understood her implication, and my heart suddenly began to race. Nicole, please don't respond, she gently interrupted me. I just wanted you to know before I leave. No matter how you feel right now, remember that starting over is not a betrayal of the past, but a way of cherishing life. With that, she rose up on her tiptoes and softly kissed my cheek, then quickly turned and walked into the apartment building, leaving me standing alone in the night, my mind in turmoil. After returning home, I tossed and turned, unable to sleep, replaying Nicole's words and that gentle kiss over and over in my mind. Suddenly, I remembered a small box in the study, where Mary's last complete letter was kept, a letter I had found while sorting through her belongings. But at the time, overwhelmed by grief, I never had the courage to open. Now, I finally mustered the courage to walk into the study and retrieve that delicate little box from the depths of the drawer. Inside lay a pale pink letter, bearing Mary's familiar handwriting. Dearest George, by the time you read this letter, you may find yourself at a crossroads in life, hesitating between moving forward or staying where you are. My greatest wish is that you can move bravely through life, as freely as your brush glides across the canvas. Love is not a shackle, but a liberation. Memory is not a burden, but a source of strength. If one day you meet someone who can rekindle the light in your eyes, please don't hesitate because of your longing for me. True love is wishing happiness for the other, even if there is no longer a place for oneself in that happiness. Remember, the days we loved each other were complete, with no need for regrets. And now, it's time to paint a new picture, my beloved. Forever loving you. Mary. Tears blurred my vision. It was as if Mary had foreseen my current situation and had already given me her blessing. She was always like this, always able to see further and more clearly than I could. At that moment, I made up my mind. Early the next morning, I drove straight to Nicole's apartment. Professor George? Nicole opened the door in surprise, clearly not expecting me. I have something to say to you. I looked her straight in the eyes, not as your teacher, but as George. I handed her Mary's letter. Nicole read it carefully, her expression shifting from surprise to being moved, and finally, her eyes grew moist. She truly was an extraordinary woman, Nicole said softly, handing the letter back to me. Yes, she was. I nodded. That's exactly why I believe her words. Nicole, cancel your plans for Paris. Stay and continue our collaboration, will you? Nicole looked at me in shock. Are you serious? I've never been more serious, I said quietly. Rebirth is not just the name of an artwork, it's a possibility in life. Are you willing to explore that possibility with me? Her answer was a firm embrace, warm and real, like the first ray of sunlight after a long winter. In that moment, I felt as if Mary was somewhere, smiling down on us, blessing this new beginning. Life is like that blood amber, enduring countless ages of change and sedimentation, ultimately transforming into an eternal radiance. And I, at last, understood what true pursuit is, what true rebirth means. A year later, Nicole and I unveiled our second joint project, Interwoven, at the National Art Museum. This series was even bolder and more innovative than Rebirth, blending Eastern and Western aesthetics with various art forms. Critics hailed it as a significant breakthrough in contemporary art. At the opening ceremony, Nicole held my arm as we faced the media interviews and congratulations from the audience together. She wore a simple white dress, and around her neck was the Eye of Rebirth necklace we designed together. She completed the jewelry part based on my painting. Your collaboration seems even more in sync than your last project, a reporter asked with a suggestive smile. Nicole glanced at me, and we exchanged a smile. Yes, both in art and in life, we found the perfect balance. This indirect answer drew a round of good-natured laughter from the reporters present. My relationship with Nicole was no longer a secret, but we always kept a low profile, letting the public's attention remain focused on our artistic creations. After the exhibition, we drove out to a small hill in the countryside. There stood an ancient oak tree, beneath which Mary's ashes were laid to rest. This was the place we chose, rather than a traditional cemetery, natural, peaceful, just like Mary herself. Mary, the exhibition was a great success today, I said softly to the stone beneath the tree. Nicole's designs were admired by everyone, just as you once predicted. Nicole crouched down and placed a bouquet of white daisies in front of the stone. Teacher Nicole, I've been working hard to become the kind of designer you hoped I would be. I hope you can be proud of me. A gentle breeze stirred, and the oak's leaves rustled softly, as if it were Mary's reply. On the way back, Nicole suddenly said, I've been thinking about something. What is it? If that woman who pretended to be Ms. Nicole hadn't appeared, you might never have found the blood amber, never created the pursuit, and we might never have met. Her words made me fall into deep thought. Indeed, it was the series of events triggered by that deception that ultimately led to everything now. It feels as if, in the unseen, some force has been orchestrating it all. Perhaps that's the irony of fate, I said softly. Sometimes, the worst beginnings can lead us to the best endings. When I returned home, I received an unexpected package. Upon opening it, I found a delicate little box containing a handmade ring. Though simple, the craftsmanship had improved greatly compared to the pieces I had seen before. There was a note attached. Mr. George, thank you for your kindness and understanding a year ago, which gave me the courage to start over. Now I have found a job at a small jewelry shop, and my life is gradually getting back on track. This ring represents my gratitude, and I wish you happiness and well-being on your new path. Luna, I handed the ring to Nicole. After examining it carefully, she remarked, her skills have improved a lot. She truly is talent. Some mistakes in life shouldn't become permanent scars, I sighed. Everyone deserves a second chance. That night, we sat in the studio, discussing ideas for the next series. Nicole suddenly proposed a bold idea. I was thinking, maybe we could try connecting the different stages of our work to create a complete narrative. From eternity to quest, then to rebirth, and intertwined, they're actually different phases in a person's life journey. You mean? A complete story about loss, searching, rebirth, and integration, she explained excitedly, ultimately asking what is the most precious treasure in life. Love. I finished her sentence. No matter what form it takes. Nicole nodded, her eyes sparkling with creative fire. We could call it the forms of love, an unprecedented artistic exploration. Sounds like a long-term, ambitious project. We have time, she smiled, holding my hand. We have so much time. In that moment, I felt a powerful surge of creative inspiration, just like when I first began my artistic career years ago, filled with passion and possibility. But this time, I was not facing the blank canvas alone. 2 years later, the Forms of Love series was exhibited simultaneously in the world's 5 greatest art museums, causing an unprecedented sensation. Critics called it a milestone in contemporary art history, blending painting, sculpture, jewelry design, and other art forms to create an entirely new artistic language. The final piece of the exhibition was titled Eternal Ring, a massive circular canvas depicting every form of love in life, familial, platonic, romantic, and the love for art itself. The edge of the canvas was inlaid with gemstones of various sizes, and under certain lighting, these gems would cast light onto specific parts of the canvas, revealing another hidden layer of patterns. The centerpiece of this work is a massive blood amber. Through intricate optical design, the light it projects perfectly outlines 2 embracing figures. One is Mary, the other is Nicole, symbolizing the intersection of past and present, the fusion of memory and rebirth. On the closing day of the exhibition, in front of the Eternal Ring, I knelt on one knee and proposed to Nicole. The ring was crafted from the very blood amber Mary had once prepared for me, designed by my own hand and fashioned by the finest jeweler. This ring carries the memories of the past and the hopes for the future, I whispered softly. Nicole, will you be the eternal ring in my life? Her tears sparkled under the spotlight. I will. Amidst the cheers, I remembered what Mary once said. Love does not disappear. It merely changes its form. Yes, love does not disappear. It exists in memories, in art, in every rebirth and new beginning. It traverses time and crosses space, like that blood amber which, after millions of years, still shines, forever retaining the original warmth and brilliance of life. This is the answer I have been searching for all along. Between loss and gain, between seeking and rebirth, love remains constant, only appearing in different forms along the journey of life. And all we need to do is bravely accept this gift, no matter how it comes to us. On the day of the wedding, the sky was a clear, washed blue. Beneath the ancient oak tree that had watched over Mary, we exchanged our vows. A gentle breeze stirred, making the leaves whisper as if blessings were drifting in from another world. No matter when or where, Nicole said softly, we'll always remember that it was she who brought us together. Yes, I squeezed her hand, and we will always cherish this gift. In the brilliant sunlight, the blood amber ring gleamed, radiant as life itself, enduring the passage of time, yet still shining bright.